Some of you are being called to change paths at this particular point in time because with this energy of create, activate your DNA, it feels like you have done a very excellent job of closing out ancestral patterns, toxic patterns, karmic patterns, lessons, and loops for yourself, and also things where you've freed your lineage. You've been that kind of like generational curse breaker, and this is something that it feels like, in addition to kind of offloading a lot of that density, a lot of that toxicity, a lot of those blocks, or even obstacles that you were facing, you have now opened a door inside of yourself in order to access a deeper degree of like personal power, spiritual power, and also spiritual gifts. For some of you, this is going to represent a time of stepping forth in order to create some sort of spiritually based business, or something where your maybe third eye chakra, with all of that kind of like purple and indigo right there, is going to lead you in the direction of something that is more in alignment with the essence of who you truly are at your core, because you've shed an illusion of what you were kind of entrained to believe your role was in society, or within your family, or in terms of the relationship to the concept of success, abundance, prosperity. This is something where you've come home to yourself, and through the process of having to like face your own reflection, or asking yourself kind of like, what now, what next, what more meaningful could I align myself with? It's like your inner kind of strength, your inner power, even sort of your recessive aspects in your DNA, kind of ancient aspects in your DNA. It's answering you. It's bringing forth clarity. It's causing you to turn your sights and attentions away from what it is that you have been working on. You've been trudging forth in the direction of, you've been focused on or aligned with, or trying to kind of squish yourself in the box of whatever role you'd been typecast into or you'd chosen for yourself. This is a point in time where it feels like any sort of prayers for guidance as far as ways in which to align with a more deeply meaningful existence, not just how can I make more money to kind of get by day to day, but how can I align with something where those portals to abundance are fully open and flowing for me, because it is in accordance with the full essence of who I am, not a cloaked essence, not a half essence, not something that is kind of obscured, by toxicity or fear, but something that kind of is simultaneously of the light and of the shadow, that true essence of balance within. And it feels like those questions that are asked very quietly, very privately, very internally. You're going to get those answers very loud and clear in the world around you, maybe even through dreams, spontaneous downloads, visions, something that it feels like isn't going to require a whole lot of planning and preparation. It's going to be that aha moment, and you're going to find that kind of reservoir of strength is available to you to dip into in order to fast track yourself towards kind of establishing within some sort of niche, some sort of community, some sort of new pathway that it feels like leads to a lot of personal success, because it's in alignment with kind of like a higher version of yourself than you'd even kind of before, than you had entertained was even possible for you to become. We also have be the powerful space between opposite poles. Yeah, for some of you, this is a time where you're going to want to just kind of drop everything that you've been focused on working on, and kind of just like cut your losses and move in a new direction. This isn't from the energy of defeat or giving up. This is the sense of kind of like that sort of glimmer out of the corner of your eye that turns your attention towards something else, a pathway that, may be very unfamiliar, but something inside feels like it is in accordance with that core alignment that you have now created the ability to perceive inside of yourself through your willingness to do that kind of shadow work, that heavy lifting, that spiritual journey that you've been along at this point, up to this point in time, in addition to kind of like changes you've been making in the material world. All of that is something that the signal is going to be received by you loud and clear to head over that way, to kind of like turn a corner, to step off of a particular path that you had invested a lot of yourself in kind of establishing or creating. And again, this doesn't come with the energy of defeat or needing to kind of admit that you aren't going to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. It's almost like you're going to jump pathways onto something where the progress is a lot quicker. The results are a lot more apparent. The yield of that is a lot more meaningful, a lot more substantial. You're going to feel better about what it is that you're doing because it is in true alignment with that core, not just of the abundance inside of yourself, but again, something that you are unlocking in terms of, ancestral gifts, ancestral wealth, kind of accumulated, energetically speaking, etherically speaking, passed on through the generations that you've kind of like cracked into that vault inside of yourself because you've been the one who has been brave enough to be very honest about certain things that were just not working, that were maybe passed down as far as traditions or things that you recognize manifest within yourself that had been links within a very familiar chain that had been a yoke around the necks of previous generations, and you've been the one strong enough, brave enough, willing to break free of that. And so with that is the essence of kind of living in a way that is more free and allows you to kind of dip even deeper into that experience, in that shadow, that deep ancestral kind of treasure trove inside of you. Those gifts are now able to be wielded by you in a more effective manner. The ways in which you kind of wield this light that you have developed, you've shaped, or you've claimed or reclaimed inside of yourself. This is something that is going to allow you to kind of see, to intuit, to know, that there is no kind of like shame in sort of admitting loss and shifting in the direction of a timeline that speaks to victory. And so again, this is kind of that urge that some of you may feel to make those drastic changes, to kind of step off a pathway that at one point in time you had felt like, I put in all this time, all this effort, I better just stay the course, or it really resonated with you up to a certain point. It served a particular purpose. Now that purpose has been accomplished, and so it's time to evolve. It's time to shape shift. It's time to kind of like wield that powerful light inside of yourself that you have brilliantly accessed and that you are well equipped without the need for permission from anyone to be able to kind of showcase in a more abundant and brilliant way to the world. We also have run wild for a while. Yeah, so for some of you, this may even just be kind of like stepping away from things that had been kind of like cluttering your attention, cluttering your schedule, things that at one point in time you'd been involved in that felt very rewarding and now just feel like drudgery. There's the sense of this season of your life you're supposed to align with kind of like what you invest yourself in. It's supposed to feel like fun. If it's work, it's supposed to be something enjoyable. If this is like a side business you're trying to create or sustain in some sort of way, it's supposed to feel good and meaningful. Yeah, things take time and it requires hard work, but this is a time where like your spirit, your soul is going to be speaking very loudly to you that like if the results aren't showing, if you've been trudging forth in a particular direction for long enough, now's the time to kind of just break trail, run free for a while. Allow your imagination to call you off the beaten trail in the direction of that space where you are able to receive those kind of like answers, that guidance, that insight from your higher self and from your deep ancestral core that now is able to kind of be open. You've healed a certain aspect of yourself, and so you're able to access kind of the genesis of, even though there may have been kind of wounds that were passed down, there was also strength, skill, abundance. Generations came and went in order for you to be here, manifest in the here and now. So obviously there was something very hardy, very resilient, very powerful about that kind of determination to press on. And it is that energy inside of yourself that feels like that you are able to harness, access, and infuse in kind of like ventures or things you're wanting to cultivate in your life, or maybe even just kind of a renewed or changed version of yourself that steps forth in new environments, a sense of adventure rather than sticking to the routine. All of that, it feels like, is something that, to answer that call inside of yourself. And this isn't going to be for everyone. Like, everyone is not at this same point in their timeline. A lot of people haven't done that shadow work. They've resisted it. They've leaned into the toxic positivity and they've avoided the shadow altogether. A lot of people are kind of like still in the fledgling sort of stages. They're right at the beginning of that generational curse breaking, dealing with the wounds, dealing with the patterns. If you're at that place, don't worry, you'll get here eventually. It's not a race. Everybody's on their own kind of like individual pathway. But for those of you that are really resonating with this message, you know what kind of work you've been putting in, long term, years that you've been kind of investing, in sort of making change for yourself, or, kind of breaking free of unhealthy habits and patterns, even just kind of looking at things, naming things, addressing things, which in and of itself takes away the power of it not being spoken of, not being addressed, it being enabled, or kind of just passed down generation to generation, or existing within you. Again, it's like another link in a chain that others in your lineage were also kind of a part of, or had succumbed to. Even just kind of putting a name to those things, that breaks you free from so much of what previous kind of people, previous generations, or even others within your lineage that are in the same patterns, what they choose to not do, not participate in, through avoidance, through denial, through perpetuating of those patterns. You're somebody that may be, again, that kind of like that black sheep, that sort of the outlier, the one that is kind of the divergent amongst your group, amongst your family. And this is a title it feels like you're going to wear with pride. You may already wear it with pride, but it feels like when you fully kind of ground yourself in that new sort of reality, this new version of you that has the wherewithal and the trust in yourself to know when something has run its course, when you've learned everything that you needed to learn, you've gained everything that you needed to gain, and what may have been kind of like a steady path up to this point in time has just become a yoke around your neck, a different kind of yoke, a different sort of trap that you find yourself in. You had the power to liberate yourself from whatever you went through before that's aligned you with a particular kind of path that you have been walking, so you have that power to liberate yourself once again. Trust in yourself, trust even in a space where you don't have all the answers, trust that those answers will come. Listen to that internal voice within, and you will be led, it feels like, in directions that may seem somewhat unconventional, but ultimately align with this kind of truth, this core essence within that you have worked very hard to cultivate, and also that has been kind of just dwelling beneath the surface, waiting within the hands of kind of the ancestors that exist within the frequency that is you, waiting to pass that along to you, because you have succeeded in kind of doing what they could not, or what was only kind of like a hope, a wish, or a prayer. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content that I put out here. Don't forget to hit the bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.